Everyone asks the wrong question during divorce. They ask, can I keep the house? And after more than 30 years in mortgage lending and after helping hundreds of divorcing homeowners navigate this exact decision, I've learned something important, that it's almost never the question that matters the most. Because the people who struggle the most after divorce aren't always the people who lose the house. Many times are the people who fought the hardest to keep it. Now, before you panic, I'm not saying keeping the house is a mistake. Sometimes it's absolutely the right decision. I've helped many clients keep their homes successfully. But what I'm saying is this. There is a question almost nobody asked before they sign their settlement agreement. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that question is. Because if you're making decisions based on emotion alone, you could be creating financial stress that follows you for years. The house is emotional. I understand that better than most. It's where your children grew up. It's where birthdays happened. It's where holiday traditions were created. It's where you thought your future was going to unfold. When everything else feels uncertain during divorce, the house often feels like the one thing that's familiar, the one thing that's stable, the one thing that you can hold on to. And because of that, many people become laser focused on one goal. I just want to keep the house. I hear it every week. In fact, that's why I wrote my ebook, Can I Keep the House? Because it's one of the most common questions I hear from people going through a divorce. But here's what I wish more people understood. Wanting the house and being able to keep the house are two completely different things. And being able to keep the house and being able to comfortably afford the house are two completely different things. I know this personally. When I got divorced, I kept the house. At the time, it felt like the right decision. I thought I was protecting stability. I thought I was protecting my future. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. But over time, I realized something. The house was protecting my past more than it was supporting my future. And that's a difficult realization. Because sometimes we're not holding on to a house. We're holding on to what the house represents. The memories, the identity, the life we thought we were going to have. And when those emotions are mixed into financial decisions, things can get complicated very quickly. One of the biggest mistakes I see that people focus entirely on whether they can qualify to keep the house. They don't spend enough time asking whether they should, because qualification is only one piece of the puzzle. Let's talk about 3 questions I wish every divorcing homeowner would ask before making this decision. The first question is, can I afford this house 6 months from now? Not today, 6 months from now. Because during divorce, people often focus on today's numbers. But real life after divorce looks very different. Attorney fees have been paid, savings has been divided, maybe support has started, maybe support hasn't started yet. Maybe there are repairs needed. Maybe you're now paying every bill yourself. The financial picture changes dramatically. I've seen people qualify on paper and still feel financially trapped 6 months later. Not because they did anything wrong, because nobody helped them stress test the decision. The second question is, what happens if life doesn't go exactly according to plan? This is a question almost nobody wants to think about. But what's really important? What happens if support is delayed? What happens if overtime disappears? What happens if a child graduates and support changes? What happens if the furnace goes out? What happens if the roof needs replacement? When you're married, unexpected expenses are often shared. After divorce, they're not. You become the entire safety net. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep the house. It means you need to understand the full picture before making the decision. Recently, I spoke with a woman who was absolutely determined to keep her home. And honestly, I understood why. Her children had grown up there. She loved the neighborhood. She loved the schools. Emotionally, she couldn't have imagined leaving. But as we started reviewing everything together, we realized something. The mortgage wasn't actually the problem. The problem was everything else. The mortgage payment was manageable. But when we added up property taxes, insurance, maintenance, future repairs, emergency savings, retirement savings, and the realities of supporting a household on one income, the picture changed. Suddenly, the decision wasn't clear. And that's why having these conversations before signing a settlement agreement is so important. Because once agreements are signed, your options become more limited. Now, here's the third question. And in my opinion, this is the most important one. What is this decision costing my future? Notice I didn't say, what is it costing you today? I said, what is it costing your future? Because the biggest expense of keeping a house often isn't the mortgage payments, it's the opportunity cost. It's the things you can't do because so much of your income is tied up in the property. It's the retirement contributions you aren't making. It's the emergency fund that never gets rebuilt. It's the flexibility you don't have. It's the freedom you postpone. Sometimes keeping the house creates security, and sometimes keeping the house creates financial pressure disguised as security. The challenge is knowing the difference, and that's why I encourage people to stop asking the question, can I keep the house? And start asking, should I keep the house? That single shift changes everything, because now we're not talking about qualification, we're talking about sustainability. We're not talking about surviving next month, we're talking about building a life for the next 5, 10, or 20 years. The goal isn't to win the house, the goal is to win your future. And sometimes those are the same thing, and sometimes they're not. The best decisions are made when emotion and strategy work together, not when emotion is driving the entire decision. If you're currently trying to decide whether keeping the house makes sense, I want you to put the word house in the comments. I'd love to know where you are in the process. And if you're wondering whether you'll actually qualify to keep the house after divorce, that's exactly what we're talking about in the next video. Because one of the biggest surprises people face is discovering that making the mortgage payment for years does not automatically mean they qualify on their own. And understanding that before you negotiate your settlement could save you from making a very expensive mistake.